Hi, everyone, and hope everyone's doing great as usual. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe to the channel and for more content. And also thumbs up if you like the video. Um, and speaking of which, about the video, there's been some uh, recent news stories in the last couple of days about more evidence pointing towards COVID-19 being having come from a lab and not from nature. I've been wondering this too, and I've had some conversations over the past 2 to 3 years about this, but I haven't really focused a lot of time on it. But figured, well, gee, I kind of want to know the answer and see um, if I can get some guidance with this sort of thing, information. So turns out the information is known and available to share. So everything in the physical universe is scribed, documented, preserved, um, and but this information is not always readily, immediately available. So for reasons of timing and privacy are two big reasons, which is like a whole nother video I plan on doing, which is really fascinating stuff about how and why this thing, everything is preserved. But the information is known in this case. Now, the big question has been, is it man-made or, does it come from nature? And initially, well, the Chinese government, they have completely not been forthcoming and been difficult and have destroyed documents, deleted files, I remember, and silenced people that were starting to talk about this. Now, initially, one of the doctors, and there's two people I'm going to mention in this video that I had a chance to talk to. One of them is Dr. Lee. So he was in the news originally. I'll show you his picture in a moment. But I asked him to help me confirm this information. And really nice guy, super nice guy. And we spoke about this. And to get to the heart of the matter, it was leaked from a lab, but it was accidental. So it wasn't done on purpose. This was a man-made version of the coronavirus. But he helped me confirm that it came from the lab and they were studying it there. He did not know this while he was on Earth, by the way. So he's the one who actually discovered this new coronavirus in his patients and began reporting it to his colleagues and friends and family to let them know before the government tried to silence him and kind of put a stop to everything so they could control the information. And he unfortunately died of the virus as well. And it was from the virus. He also confirmed that it was natural. It was natural. Of course, it did come from the lab naturally, meaning like he wasn't murdered or anything like that. But the virus that came from the lab that got out into the public, he did die from that, unfortunately. So there was, the government didn't have a hand in him dying, that is. In fact, let me show you his picture, and then I also I got this information from three sources. So just in general, from my spiritual guides, as usual, talking to Dr. Lee, and also recently, about 3 or 4 months ago or so, one of the former presidents of China actually died. So I asked to speak to him, and he was willing to speak about this sort of thing as well. And share the information. So I'll tell you what he said. I'll show you his picture here too in just a moment. Okay, so here's Dr. Lee, and he's the one I was speaking with, and his picture may look familiar because he was in the news back then, one of the original people, again, doctors, to note this and try to share it before the government really hid it from the public and tried to control the information. So really nice guy, and definitely thank you, and I thank him for sharing that information, taking the time to do that. So you can read more about him here, but I just wanted to show you who that was. And the other individual I mentioned that I got to speak with was this guy here. Jiang Zemin, I believe, is how you say it. So he died a few months ago, was one of the former presidents of China, and was willing to speak about this. And again, most people are. Just about everybody is available and willing to speak about, what happens on Earth and share the information. Um, once they cross over, I did another video on that and how everybody kind of realizes the nature of life and what once we're enlightened by the nature of the reality of the afterlife and that sort of thing. So that being said, he was willing to talk about this, and we did talk about this briefly. Now, what I had asked him was to confirm whether or not it was a leak, and he did. He said it was a lab leak, and it's important to point out that, and again, this is just to share this from a truthful context, not to pick sides or anything like that, but just kind of explain everything as I understand it. So this lab was meant to simply for study, he said, to study viruses. And so it wasn't specifically meant to be used for, to be weaponized. But that was one of the areas of study, of course. And most governments do this. So to understand something and not only use it or to protect against it or, just to be best prepared about anything is really to understand it through and through. So a virology lab like this his exact words were simply to study. But of course, that does include, germ warfare, application, that sort of thing, but can also mean good things too, like cures for this sort of thing or related viruses and practical knowledge as well. So again, study just means to collect that information, and that's what they were doing before it was leaked. And he did confirm as well that it was a leak. I asked him too, did you have direct knowledge of this? Did you know as a former president of China that this was a leak? And he said yes. He said I was aware it had leaked. I forget exactly what he said. I was aware, he said, it had leaked or it was a leak, is what he had said. So he knew, and they really tried hard to control this narrative. Some information seems to be coming out now. Finally, it's weak right now, but that could point to this as having come from the lab. He also said too that it was made in the lab, this particular strain of the virus. And for the most part, it can be found in nature. The coronavirus can, but there are some things that make this unique, as it was engineered in a lab, and I don't know if they'll ever be able to identify that. I remember seeing some videos a couple of years ago where people were saying that, but then some people came out and said no. It's really hard to say, without proper proof. And they took the time to try and delete and change and silence people to control that narrative. So, I'm not too surprised, to be honest, because it makes sense. Because they, in order to, have a firm control of the power, they cannot ever be made to be seen to not be in control. And to admit that this was leaked and that sort of thing would make the government look weak and not in control. So to silence this sort of information is to maintain the perceived integrity or authority of the CCP or the Chinese Communist Party. Because I was thinking, like, why not just be forthcoming? But that's just not their platform. That's not their ideology. It's just not built into how they operate. So, unfortunately, it just seems like it would be better to be, forthcoming. We can all understand this, learn from it, and try to prevent it in the future. But that is one of the reasons why, they do this sort of thing. So these are the two guys I wanted to share with you that I spoke with regarding this. So. Okay, so those are the profile, or not profiles, but the Wikipedia pages for the two guys I talked to, and the information I was able to confirm with them. And so just to kind of summarize everything, the COVID or coronavirus, it did not come from nature. It does exist in nature, but this version of it was man-made in a lab. and it's very similar. It's just about the same as the varieties that exist out there, but it was changed slightly, created in the lab and man-made, and being studied. It was accidentally released, so the people working in the lab got it in their system and unfortunately became carriers, and that's how it got outside the lab. So the Chinese government tried to suppress that fact, and they did delete it, and there's stories about this in the news too. They just things were changed or deleted, and even people that worked for like the medical system and the government to one degree or another confirmed this, and tried to say, well, files are being changed or deleted, and so something was happening as far as the data that was trying to be hid, and to hide the fact that it did come from the lab. So that is the origin of it, and the truth behind it, from what I understand. And whether or not this will ever be made known, will the truth come out? That's a great question. So right now, and it's hard to say if that ever will be the case. Have they done enough, good enough of a job covering their tracks? The Chinese government in this case, or are there things they missed, things that people could still find? It's really hard to say, because while these investigations continue, it's a matter of people find evidence and are able to piece it together. But so far, there just hasn't been enough to really prove either way, from what I understand, whether it was man-made or came from nature, because there's really questions about both still. So whether the actual truth will come out fully remains to be seen. So I just wanted to share that, and just in the grand context, I think it makes sense, and why there hasn't been clarity around this, and why the communist Chinese government, Chinese Communist Party, I believe is the official name, went to great lengths to silence people and delete documents and destroy it and that sort of thing. I mean, why else would they? If there's nothing to hide, or if it was, there's a joint effort to try and pinpoint the origins of the virus, so we could all, work through it together and that sort of thing. Why destroy what might be necessary to help protect against it? So, and again, it's just to hide the fact that they can't appear ever to not be in control. That's an important part of their ideology and them being in power. So that was definitely a big part of it. And I think that kind of summarizes it and what I wanted to share. So hopefully this was informative, as always. And, I saw it on the news again, and I just had to visit it, kind of was curious about it, and if this information was available, and it turns out it was. So just wanted to share it again. Thank you for watching, and if you have any ideas or comments or questions, please leave them in the comments or let me know. And I think that's it. So please take care of yourself. As always, we'll see you in the next video. Thank you.